Welcome back to Garza Gaming Channel. Today we're taking an in-depth look at Maman Brigittte, the new sexy little goddess that's coming out this Tuesday, right? Now I'm telling you right now, when they showed this goddess in the SMITE stream yesterday, I was a little timid on how well she was going to work in Arena. But after actually testing this goddess for a little bit and checking out her kit firsthand, I'm telling you, she is a lot of fun, right? So the way this video is going to work, I'm going to take an in-depth look at all of her abilities, right, to explain exactly what they do and the little tidbits of information I learned in using this kit, her kit, right? And additionally, we're going to go into into the game and show you the targeting for each ability. Now this is going to be a quick overcap of her abilities, and so you can see more or less what they do and how the targeting works. And then I'm going to tell you the build that I'm going to use this Tuesday to test her out. And then we're going to take all the information that we learned, her various abilities, her targeting, and the build I'm going to use, and then we're going to jump into some arena action with some hard bots to check it out and see how she works in the arena, right? Now again, we're on the PTS server today, so we're going to be playing against hard bots, so take that with a grain of salt. But the cool thing is, when you play with hard bots, the system likes to use a lot of chain CC, so it's a little bit more realistic on what you're going to face when you try this god in the wild come Tuesday. But hey man, let's not delay any longer. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with Maman Brigitte's kit, right? And right out the gate, let's start with her passive called Soul Spikes. So damaging an enemy with basic attacks or abilities will put a stack of Soul Spikes on them, right? So upon reaching 5 stacks, Maman absorbs a piece of their soul, dealing damage based on their missing health and getting a soul orb from that enemy god. Soul orbs last 30 seconds. So the damage on this is very unique in the fact that it does 1% of your magical power per 1% of the missing health of the enemy, right? To a soul spikes damage cap of 70%. So you can only multiply your 1% of magical power up to 70% top. Dude, that is a lot of damage. Say, to put into context, imagine if you had 300 magic power, which is really simple to get, right? So at 300 magical power, 1% is 3. Multiply that by 70. That is 210 points of damage, which is pretty significant, man. Now, the soul spikes duration are 10 seconds. Ooh, that's pretty powerful passive, man. Okay, so her number 1, party trick, right? So Maman Brigittte drinks from her bottle and breathes out fire. Enemies are set aflame and damage every half a second up to 3 ticks, right? Or 1.5 seconds. Refreshing if the enemy stays in the area or keeps getting breathed on. Now, this damage does not trigger any special effects like, Soul Reaver, what have you. Maman Brigittte is knockback immune. Knockback immune, not CC immune, just knockback immune while she's channeling the fire, as long as there's rum, right? And can cancel at any time. When out of rum or upon reactivation, she slams her bottle on the ground, damaging and stunning enemies within the circle identifier that you can see here in a bit. These abilities cooldown are reduced based on the amount of rum that's left in her bottle when she slams it. So what that means is when you're, if you just do her number 1, get a couple of ticks and turn it off, and you still have 80% rum still in the bottle, and then you slam it down, right? Oh, the more rum she has in the bottle, the quicker the cooldown where you're going to be able to use that ability again. So keep that in mind. Now, the fire damage per tick on this is 8, 16, 24, 32, and 40, plus 10% of her magical power. Now, the slam late game does 200 damage plus 35% of your magical power, and the stun is for 1.2 seconds. Now, the maximum, if you had no more rum left in the bottle and slams, before any kind of cooldown reduction, the slam, it's going to be a 14-second cooldown, which is sounds like a lot, but with cooldown reduction and rum still in the bottle, it actually regenerates pretty freaking quick. Now, her number 2, Madame's Fangs, right? This is where Maman's tattoo, Maman's Fang, or Madame Fang, I should say, slithers off her arm and becomes a spectral snake. that passes through the enemies, damaging and applying Madame's mark on all enemies that they hit, right? Now, keep in mind that this passes through enemies. So you can put multiple marks on multiple gods. And these marks last for a good, 5 seconds. So keep that in mind. So, and then subsequent hits of this ability only does 15% of the initial damage. Now, enemies with Madame's mark take additional damage anytime my mom damages her, right? Or damages them. The bonus damage does not trigger item effects, and the soul spikes and item effects don't trigger my mom's mark. Okay, so keep this in mind. Anybody that's marked with this ability, so if anybody that you hit with this snake gets a debuff, right? And you're gonna see it's gonna look like a little skull on them. And for 5 seconds, any damage that you do with this god on those marked targets, you're gonna get more damage. It's gonna get additional damage to them, which is pretty pretty big, man. Now, Madame's Fang's initial damage late game is 150 plus 40% of your magical power. And Madame's mark damage is 5 plus 5% of your magical power. So that's pretty huge. And then, of course, the marks last 5 seconds. Now, also something I've learned when I was testing this is that you got to keep in mind, and we could talk about this in our alt, that this Madame's Fang's debuff, right, her Madame's mark, does not stack with the alt, right? Because both the alt and Madame's Fangs puts that debuff on targets. So you're gonna have to, utilize your kit efficiently, so you're not, wasting that extra 5 seconds of extra damage by going from a 1 to an alt or an alt. I mean, from a 2 to an alt or an alt to a 2. So keep that in mind. Okay, and then her number 3, Spirit Seas, right? Madame Brigitte shrouds herself in a ghostly energy that when she dashes forward, passing through a player-made wall. So she can go through player-made walls, not solid walls, not map walls, player-made walls. Your Ymirs and your Odins, right? And let's see what it says. If she hits an enemy god, she possesses them. So she goes inside of them, almost like a Nox on a friendly target, but she goes into, obviously goes inside the enemy target. And while inside of them, she does a tick, right? So she does initial damage, and then she starts doing a tick for 4 ticks every half a second. Now, Maman Brigitte can leave her target early by dashing out or canceling to step out. So what that means is if you're a PC player and you use your your left mouse button to go inside of her, if you click it again, you're going to shoot out again, right? Now, if you use your right mouse button or you cancel out, and the equivalent with controllers, right? You're just going to drop down in front of them. You're not going to leap out. You're just going to pop out right in front of the enemy. So, I mean, that could work for some various different strategies, but don't do it by accident, thinking you're going to leap out, and next thing you know, all you do is just go poof, and then you're surrounded by the enemy, right? Now, the reason this is very big, man, huge, is in testing, I learned, and it doesn't say it here, or if it does, I didn't comprehend it, but when you jump into an enemy, right, you do initial damage jumping in, and while you're in there, you're doing tick damage, right? Now, if you have that, Madame's mark on them, that tick damage does activate that, so you get that bonus damage on that. Now, when you jump out, right, or you dash out, and say there's a crowd of enemy around you, every god that you dash through on the way out takes damage. That is huge, man. So not only can you pass through gods going out, but you can also do damage to them as you're trying to escape. That is freaking huge, man. That is very huge. Okay, and then you have her our alt, Explosion of Souls, right? Now, Madame Brigitte gains crowd control immunity. This is huge, man. She becomes crowd control immune while she's going through the graphic of throwing this ball. This can work very well against Ares and what's her name? Claw Girl. Daji. So it's very, very nice. And then additionally, obviously, any other gods that has any type of crowd control, you can counter it with this ability. The orb's size is determined by the amount of souls that Maman has collected in her, through soul spikes. Now, enemies hit are damaged knocked up and receive my mom's mark. And that's what I was saying, man. So be careful not to go from an ult to a 2 if you can. I would try to delay at least 5 seconds and then hit him with the 2, so you get 10 seconds of additional damage. Now, of course, you're gonna have to, situation is gonna dictate, but a combo, a more effective combo, probably be like an alt 1, or alt, basic attacks, and then 3, or an alt 1, 3, 2. You get the idea, but just keep in mind that the additional debuff does not stack with her 2 and her ult. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much, and the damage is late game 360 plus 85% of her magical power, which is huge. Okay, so now we got a quick rundown of what her abilities are and what they do. Now let's see them in action. Okay, so let's take a very quick glance at what the targeting looks like for these abilities before we actually see them in action in some arena, right? So her number 1, her breath, right? As you see, is a fan type targeter, right? But when you activate it, you see the fan in a circle around it. Now, anything within that fan is going to absorb that tick damage. Now, the unique thing about this, remember, for every time that an enemy is hit with it, they get a 3 tick damage hit, right? So you can actually do it in, cancel it out, do it again, cancel it out, do it again, cancel it out. So you can actually weave in some basic attacks through it, right? Or hit it again, activate it again to get that stun in there. Now, one thing that I can tell you, if you use items such as a Polynomicon or Soul Reaver or something like that, the actual fire portion of this will not set that passive damage, but throwing down that bottle and breaking that stun will activate that damage, which is really, really important, especially for anybody that's thinking of using a Polynomicon like I am, right? Now, her number 2 can be targeted either short or long, right? The shorter you do it, the wider it is. The longer you do it, the skinnier it is, but it goes longer. Now, it does damage, and you see how he puts that mark on there. So that mark, as you hit it, you see that additional damage that clicks on the side, almost like an arachne type poison, right? And to an extent, you see that extra damage that you get. So that's pretty cool. And then her dash, right? Her dash is a straight line dash. Now you can actually dash in people and go wait the duration, and then after the 4 ticks, you're gonna get actually thrown out. Let me reset it real quick. All right, the second one, you can actually go in and then click it again and get out early. And then for the third one, and this is very important, that was with the left mouse button or the if you're on controller, whatever activates in the key that activates an actual attack. And the third one, you can go like that, or cancel out for PC players is the right mouse button, the equivalent to controllers. And you see how I fall just to the side of her. This is very important because you don't want to accidentally, cancel out and just pop out next to her if you are wanting to escape or go through multiple targets, because you're going to be a sitting duck, man. And then, of course, as you see her do damage, right? You see how she starts gaining orbs on the side, those little souls on the side. Now, they seem like they get gained with both basic attacks and abilities, because it's pretty much just the spikes, right? Now, when you go into her ult, the more of those orbs you have, the wider the ult is. And this is pretty significant, man, because if you look over here, I mean, that covers a good almost, what, 1, 2, let me go to the edge. Yeah, man, 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5, right at 5 players standing side by side wide, which is pretty significant, man. Boom. So it's a strong AoE type damage. As you can see, though, everybody that got damaged with them also got that mark, right? That Madame's mark. So yeah, so for the follow up with that can very easily go with the 1, and you'd get that extra damage. Now, additionally, if you hit him with the snake, of course, you also get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 deep of people standing there, you know, almost 6 persons deep of that debuff, which is freaking pretty amazing to tell you the truth. Because you can go with that and then go into some, you know, extra tick damage. You see how you're getting that 35 from the actual fire damage and a little 6. And I don't have no items or nothing on there. So you can see how this compounds. Now, as far as combos go, the combo that I've seen is working is you're always going to want to initiate pretty much with your number 2 to get the extra damage. As you can see with a tick, how you get that Madame's Mark and the actual tick damage of the breath. So it looks like the number 1 is going to always be your initiator, unless you're going to be going into an alt, right? Because remember, your alt gives you that meta mark and the number 2 gives you that meta mark. So I think it'd be smarter to try to capitalize on 10 seconds worth of debuff damage than, you know, overlapping that you know, that 5 and 5, which it does, from what I'm seeing on here, it does not stack. So you're only going to get 5 seconds of that extra damage. Of course, situation will dictate, you got to do what you do, but to be more efficient, I definitely would try to space that out some. You know, weave in a couple attacks until you don't see that no more, hit them again, you know, go through them, do what you got to do. But yeah, that's pretty much all her attacks in a nutshell. You've seen how I targeted him. Now let's go into the build that we're going to use come this Tuesday. Okay, so for her initial build, this is what I'm going to attempt to use, right? I'm going to use Chronos Pendant, Spirit Rose, Spirit Desolation, Eternal Staff, Doom Orb, and Polynomicon. And this is why, right? Her abilities are affected with MP5. So the more MP5 you have, obviously the quicker her fuel is going to regenerate, which is very, very big. So having that with that Chronos Pendant is really, really nice. Plus you get that added cooldown reduction. Now, as you see, she is a melee type god. So she's going to, in Arena, and just speaking for Arena, she's going to be a sitting duck to chain CC teams. Chain CC is going to be her Achilles heel, right? Now her kit does allow her to kind of work around some CC, but a well-coordinated chain CC team on comms, like we see normally happening in Arena, is going to be just death to this god, right? So keep that in mind. That's why I incorporated that spirit robe that not only has cooldown reductions and some protections at the cost of damage, right? But it also has 20% crowd control reduction. Additionally, that's why I incorporated that Infernal Staff, because the Infernal Staff gives her a little bit more health, but it also gives her an additional 20% crowd control reduction that's going to max out how much crowd control she can have at 40% reduction, right? And it's going to allow her to steal more health. So it's going to make her tankier. Plus, it's still going to give her that 70 magical power, you know? So she's going to, this is not just one of those defense items that allows her to do no damage. This is going to help her do even more damage, but have that survivability. Now, of course, the Doom Orb, I picked that because of the high damage. Plus, you get more MP5 to capitalize, you know, the compound on what you get from Chronos Pendant, plus the movement speed. This guy seemed like she was a lot faster just at base level, but adding the extra movement speed of the Doom Orb, it just works out beautifully from the testing I've done with her, right? And of course, penetration is always awesome on any mage. But here's the big one I think is going to work beautifully on her, and that's Polynomicon, man. Pretty much all her attacks, to an extent, can trigger Polynomicon. The only thing that's going to hold you back from doing multiple Polynomicon, you know, damage is the, you know, the internal cooldown of the actual item itself. Polynomicon works out beautifully on this god, as we're going to see here in a second, right? But yeah, that's pretty much what I decided to go with as far as her items. Now, as far as ability goes, you know, the abilities are going to depend pretty much on what goes first on your play style, right? What I ended up doing is looking to see which one had actual cooldown. Now, you don't see it here, but when you go into her actual abilities, it will tell you there. Now, as you can see, her number 1 has a static 6-second cooldown. Her number 2 has a cooldown duration, where it starts at 13 cooldown early game, a 13-second cooldown early game, and then it finishes out at 11 seconds late game, right? So the more levels you put in this, you know, the quicker you're going to get down that cooldown reduction. Now, keep in mind that her number 1 is already at 6 seconds. So even maxed out at level 4, her number 2 can only be at 11 seconds. Now keep in mind, this is before any type of cooldown reduction. Now, her number 3 is also deadlocked at 16 seconds of cooldown. So for my play style and the way I'm going to see this, it just makes more sense to obviously max out her 1 first out of the first 3 abilities. Obviously going, for 1 every time her ult comes up, putting something into her ult, right? So I'm going to end up maxing out my 1 first, and then depending on what's going on with here at level 4 on this one, you get 180 and 20%. Now keep in mind, when you dash out, it does multiple damage to enemies. And then I look at this one at max, she does 235%. For me, I think it just makes more sense to go ahead, because the stun duration is going to be 1.2 seconds no matter what level it is, right? So it only makes more seconds to max out the 2, then go max out the 3. Of course, always putting a point into the ult as it comes up available, and then going and maxing out the 1 last. At least that's what I'm going to do. But hey, man, we talked about her combos, we talked about her abilities, we talked about what kit we're going to use or what build we're going to use. Now let's see it all brought together in some arena action. Okay, so here we go with the very first look at some arena action of Maman Brigitte, right? Now, she is a mage. Now, while you can use, the gooseberries for her as the way of recipes, I would recommend, and what I'm going to be using anyway, is going to be the cooldown one, right? I think that the cooldown recipe is going to work out a lot better for her. Obviously, beads and Aegis is going to be very important for her as well. Now, as you all know, I love Bracer Brilliance, so I'm probably going to be using that as well, depending on the makeup of the enemy I'm going against. Now, today I'm going against hard bots, right? Because obviously we're in the PTS server right now, so going against bots is pretty much what what we don't want to go against. Now, I can tell you right now, hard bots is important because the computer likes to use a lot of chain CC type tactics when you use hard bots as opposed to easy or medium. And that's what we want to test, is her, is get as good an idea as we can on how she's going to be affected by CC. All right. Yeah, but that 3 works really well as an escape. You see that Fenrir is trying to chase me down. Silly Fenrir. Initiate with that 1, get that tick damage. Boom. See ya. Now keep in mind, we're just checking out her abilities and how she works in arena. Don't pay too much attention to the damage or anything like that, because again, we're going against hard bots, right? Now, as far as her ticks, you get 3 ticks per per damage, and you can cancel the ticks early. Now when you go inside of them, as you can see, the ticks are actually generating the extra damage from that Madame's mark. See ya. You see, you get that extra damage when you basic with the Mark II.
Won't mind if I do.
Yeah. Now the trick of it too is if you want to throw that bottle down, right? For PC players, you have to hit the 1 twice. I don't think it goes. Let me try with the left mouse button to see if that triggers it. Oh, it does. It does. Awesome. So that's really going to help out too. So be careful then. Make sure you don't over click, right? So you don't accidentally throw that bottle when you don't mean to. Especially if you plan on weaving, canceling, breathing, canceling, breathing, canceling, and then finishing out, go inside of her, get those tick damage going. Multiple people got it. As you see, I was doing multiple damage to multiple gods when I jumped out.
Enemy soul awaits. You've collected a soul.
All right.
What a rampage.
Yeah, as you can see, that MP4 or MP5 is going to be very important for her because that's pretty much what's going to help you to generate her fuel faster. Pretty much like mana. It's mana. It's pretty much mana.
You must find
It's mana. What am I saying?
allies.
The only thing is you don't get multiple mana. I don't believe if you
Your ally has
and well, I'll have to
met
test it, but I don't
your
believe that her fire is affected by the more mana you get. I think you're just stuck at a certain amount no matter what your mana is. Because from what I understand, it's fuel, not
two
mana.
souls well earned.
Surely they learned their lesson by
As you can see, man, she's gonna be a sitting duck with that CC. Let's go. But I can tell you, she is a lot of fun, and having that spirit robe really helps out, especially if she gets some hard CC on her. Right? It just helps to alleviate. Can I throw this over walls? Yes. So you can throw her ult over walls. That's cool.
Perhaps next time
Nice.
we consider fighting the hand of Den. You must find stronger allies.
Yeah, you gotta be careful not to go over, you know, through her unless you really want to. It's really easy to overextend on that jump in, or on her number 3, I should say. I went through that guy because I double clicked when I meant to single click. So you gotta be very. She's one of those guys you got to be very cautious of your fingers or how your controls. Let's go with Aegis.
An enemy has been slain.
But yeah, it looks like her number 2 for sure is going to be the initiator.
An enemy soul awaits.
Get the extra damage. Get the extra stun. Dude, this is going to be so freaking.
Impressive.
Now remember, her ult pretty much makes her immune to CC. So that's pretty cool. But now it doesn't last very long. So I mean, take that with a grain of salt. But the cool thing is, she's not as much of a sitting duck as I thought she was going to be
Come on already.
when I first saw her.
But now,
Alright, let me head back so I don't get killed. But I can tell you, she is a lot of fun to play. A lot of fun. And that's there's gonna be a learning curve for sure. But I can tell you, I think the red buff will probably be better than her base attack speed, to tell you the truth. For the simple fact that she doesn't get crit damage. She gets additional damage, you know, with her multipliers. But I think you can do better having the other attack power, because you're not going to really want to be sitting there too long. Unless you're 1v1ing people, you're not going to want to be sitting there for too long, or you're just going to get CC'd and killed.
Enemy soul awaits.
come on.
Did it again.
Killing spree has just begun. What a rampage.
Boom, see ya. Oh man, I tell you what, she's not as I guess since I built her with a little bit of defense, she's not as fragile as I thought she was going to be. And that's really cool.
Pathetic.
That her number 3 works very well as an escape. Very well.
I've never seen someone so
Very
unstoppable.
nice, very nice. Let's go back and get some more items. As you can see, for every time I hit those people with spikes, those orbs are opening up. That's going to be important when we go to use her ult.
What a rampage.
Now, also keep in mind that when you're inside of an enemy, right, when you use her number 3, you're also immune to damage, which is huge. Being immune to damage is huge. When you play Nox, you're not immune to damage when you jump into a friendly target. So that's also going to work in the way of a little bit more escapability.
Someone so unstoppable. Quadra kill.
Very nice.
An enemy has been slain. Perhaps next time they'll reconsider fighting the hand of death. The pinnacle of pestilence.
Ay, 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 dude.
Foes to slay. Their might. Its ally has been slain. An enemy's soul awaits.
Now, obviously, the extra damage is only going to be for you, not the enemy. I mean, not your friendlies.
You must
Oh, let's
find
go.
stronger.
As you can see, dude, she's going to be a lot of fun. Again, the only Achilles heel that I've seen is going to be a well-organized Chain CC team. Now, 1v1s or 1v2 type fights, I think she's going to be pretty powerful, dude. Unless you're going against two gods that have both CC, you might be all right because of the way her kit works. You see how I just went inside, and I can just run out away. Hit him again. Stun him. See ya. Use her ult to get out of that CC, and boom, I'm gone. Just that quick, dude. That CC, I mean, her ult making her CC immune is gigantic. Gigantic. Having a freaking a stun at your beck and call like that comes up pretty quick, actually, is pretty big too. I almost died. Boom, gone. See ya. All right, let me sell this thing before I forget, like I always do. See if we can get our Polynomicon online. I think that Polynomicon is going to work out beautifully. Ah, they got me.
Can you smell the souls?
All right. Hopefully I can get that Polynomicon before we end this. Oh man, it's like a real game. Nobody wants to get the minions. Now see her number 3 actually passes through stuff. Boom, you see how I did damage to this guy by jumping out of the other guy? So that's really big too, man. Now you want to initiate with that 2 and then jump in, because you're going to end up getting that extra damage. And remember that her bonus damage is dependent on the missing, the amount of missing health that the enemy has.
Triple kill.
Nice.
The killing
nobody's getting
spree
minions.
has just begun.
Yeah, go with that 2 and then go inside of them so you get that bonus damage. Get that stun going, and then coming in with that. Let me go get my Polynomicon before I end this too early. Now you see how that Eternal Staff is giving her more hit points. I'm at 2,700 hit points, and I think that's going to be very important for this god for survivability. Having the extra, being able to have the extra mitigations from the Spirit Robe and having the extra hit points from the Eternal Staff, I think is going to be huge for this god.
The enemy's soul awaits. Double
Yeah, see ya. See ya. All right, let's add a little bit more attack power to this kid. Let's go.
Your ally has met their untimely end. What a rampage!
Now you see how that breathing fire didn't activate the Polynomicon, but as soon as I threw that bottle down, that initiated the Polynomicon passive damage. So keep that in mind. If you want to get that Polynomicon off that 1, you're gonna have to, throw your bottle down, which is pretty cool because it gives you control when that extra Polynomicon damage can burst out. That's going to allow you to, articulate a lot of cool combos with it. All right, now remember, this doesn't pass through walls like that, but it does pass through like Ymir's wall or Odin's wall. So pretty much what they call man-made objects or walls. There you go.
An enemy has been slain.
Don't mind if I do.
The killing spree has just begun.
Your turn, madame. Bartender.
All succumb to death's embrace in the
Minions have reached your fortune.
enemy soul awaits. An impressive battle. That's two soul lost.
Dude, that is just so nasty. The combos you can do with her are just craziness. But yeah, that is Maman Brigittte, a very powerful mage, man. I'm telling you, when they showed her in that stream, it didn't do her justice, man. It didn't do her justice. So now we know, yes, you can shoot through man-made walls with her dash, but not arena-made walls, right? When you dash out of an enemy, you do multiple damage for every guy that you go through on the way out. That is huge too. And if those guys have you know, a mark on them, you get that bonus damage on top of that. So that is very big. Yeah, like I said, don't even worry about the damage. But you see, we were 41,000 player damage, and I was just, you know, BSing with you guys pretty much, or explaining the stuff with y'all throughout the whole thing. But yeah, man, that's Maman Brigittte, man. A very, very interesting mage assassin, right? Again, I think that she's going to be fun. Don't get me wrong. She's going to be a very fun guy to play. Her only Achilles heel is going to be chain CC, man. But you can mitigate that depending on your team, right? As long as you have good team cohesion, somebody and your team knows how to peel, you know, and you have, you know, stuff like that, I think you're going to be okay. But you're going to have to be very, very careful on trying to take on more than, you know, 2 or 3 guys that have CC, because as soon as you get stunned one time, you're going to be sitting duck. Anyway, that is our in-depth look at Maman Brigittte. Hey, man, are you new to the channel? So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And don't forget that we stream every Tuesday at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time right here on YouTube. And this Tuesday is when this goddess is going to hit the arena, right? And we're going to be able to try her live on our stream this Tuesday, right? So this is going to be really, really awesome. So, hey, man, what do you think about Maman Brigittte? Put it in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on her, right? Again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I'm Dark Garza, your OG on the GC. We'll see you next time.